Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Danae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Want daily interviews with real estate investors and none of the fluff? Go to bestevershow.com, where Joe Fairless interviews real estate investors and entrepreneurs daily about their best advice ever. Go to bestevershow.com.
With us on the podcast today is Christian Knudsen. He is known for tireless work ethic, energetic presentation, and hands-on approach to consultative sales. He blazed a trail of multi-million-dollar revenue growth across several industries, and he's been Chief Technology Officer, Director of Sales, established high-level relationships with major accounts for a corporate company, and also a key member of the leadership team tasked with influencing change. Christian led the company to develop groundbreaking, first-in-kind technological solutions for the logistics industry. He was also a keynote speaker at Dreamforce in November of 2017. So, Christian, thank you so much for your time today and for being on with us to talk with us for a few minutes.
Hey, you know what? The pleasure is all mine. I'm looking forward to being on the show here with you guys.
Want to start out and just kind of let you fill in a little bit of the blanks for us as far as your career and where you've come from and how you've gotten to be the executive that you are and what some of the things are that you've experienced.
Yes, for sure. More than happy to give you kind of a high-level view on where I'm coming from. So I have been in a sales managerial environment for the last 20 years of my life. I've always held sales roles, typically senior level sales roles. My background is very, very strong in client relationships, building relationships, managing sales teams. About 4 years ago now, just to give a little summary on this, my background is very much into technology as well. So as a career, I've been very much in sales, but as a personal passion, I've been involved in technology for the entirety of my life. I've grown up in it. I've been immersed in it. It's something that's very, very integral to who I am today. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to actually combine a senior sales role as well as a CTO position, actually to the enablement of the company. So really, since that time, I've been very much in both seats. So from a sales perspective, I'm always looking for technology to help my salespeople. I'm always looking for technology to bridge the gap between operations and sales. Very much kind of an enablement procedure. Several years ago, I realized that I had the background, I had the expertise to actually build these systems with a team of IT experts. And from that point forward, I've been very much involved in building CRMs, management tools, real-time cloud-based environments, where I've been able to take a brick and mortar company and basically enhance it to the point where it's now living in a real-time cloud-based 360-degree environment. And it's interesting, but the creation of those type of platforms basically came from a sales need that I saw.
And what are some of the tough decisions that you've had to make personally in this, journey that you've had in the position that you are right now? I like to start off with what I like to call the sore thumb, decision, where you made a decision and didn't really turn out the way you wanted. And even though you learned lessons from that, and you can turn a bad decision, if you will, into a good decision, but, or some lessons that you can learn from it. What would you say is that one sore thumb decision that you made in this journey that, we can learn something from?
Well, you know what? To be quite honest, one of the bigger decisions that I came across that, did lead to that was the need almost to take on too much that I could handle. I've been in the process where even though I hold my regular roles, for the companies I'm engaging in 40 hours, 50 hours a week, because of my passion and my engagement in what I'm working on and what I'm doing, especially from the technology side of my background, I often commit to different board positions. I commit to projects. I commit to these engagements because whatever it happens to be relating to, it actually excites me. It wants me to be involved into this. And one of my most significant issues is not so much burnout, but literally working myself into 80 hours a week of work and projects. And obviously, as you can imagine, I'm not the first one to probably say this, but this puts a significant amount of strain on your family life. Obviously, a lot of strain on your families, your children. It's an exciting lifestyle, but I always have to remember that the reason that I do everything that I'm doing is really for the benefit of my family ultimately. And I typically take on a lot more than I probably should. I'm there waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm going to bed very late in the evening. I oftentimes, don't take care of my health as a primary concern. It becomes more of a secondary concern. So this is something that, being busy, having a very, very active career, which is great. If you don't learn to balance your life, you really do burn yourself out on both ends. And this is something that I think myself and especially people in similar roles, entrepreneur roles as well, really have to keep in the back of their mind. We're still human. We still have families. It can't always be work, even though, yes, maybe you put in a little bit more time or a lot more time than the average 9-to-5 role. We're doing this because we're passionate. We're doing this because we love this. But you know what? It's not always about us. We do have a family behind us, and that is our support group.
So, Christian, just to kind of go a little bit further with that, I think what you hit on there is something Dan and I've talked about before, is that we really kind of like to work. We enjoy what we do, and we find a lot of fulfillment in working. So it's something that you really have to be conscious about finding a balance. And with your experience, obviously now as a corporate officer and all of the work that you've done, do you have any specific things that you've learned related to that have helped you find that balance, or anything specific that you could tell our audience about, keeping that balance?
Yes, for sure. This is something obviously that's important to me, and it's always something that's in the back of my mind. This may sound perhaps a bit humorous or maybe even exaggerated, but this isn't. My best advice is really to micromanage your life. You know what? My calendar is my best friend. Everything that I'm doing, I map through my calendar Monday to Friday, 24 hours a day, weekends included on this. I'm often joking around with my wife, but if she doesn't schedule in and send me a meeting invite to go out grocery shopping on Saturday, you know what? I've already penciled in time with the children. I've penciled in work on some projects. So it may sound amusing, but the honest reality of it is, by micromanaging myself and actually engaging in that management of my daily time, I'm able to break down a 15-minute window of opportunity where I can make a phone call, I can connect with a client, I can focus on a secondary project, or even so much as connecting with some of my followers on LinkedIn. So I really do break my entire day down into 15-minute periods. And this actually makes it manageable. And even so much on top of that, as I go through my day and I X out these involvements that I've been in throughout the morning, the afternoon, the evening, it actually gives me a feeling of accomplishment. I feel very energized that, as I'm proceeding through the day, I'm crossing off this, I'm crossing off that. And that's really the secret to success, to managing, 7 or 8 different roles throughout the week, is that you actually have a clear expectation of where you're going. And don't get me wrong, you get curveballs throughout the day. Schedules change, people cancel, you get meetings that pop up unexpectedly. That's fine. But if you're managing yourself accordingly, it keeps the stress levels down. You've scheduled time in there to make sure that you have a couple of hours available to play with your kids. You're penciling in that, Friday evening, you have a date night with your wife. These are things that are very, very much important to me, and just as important as my business activities. So my calendar has become my best friend.
As I say, it's interesting you say that, because, I was just listening to Damon John the other day, and one of the things that he said is that, as a family man, you have to be able to schedule your time with your family. And although that might sound, I have to schedule time to play with my kids, he basically makes the point that, when you get so busy in business, if you don't schedule it, then it doesn't happen. And so to be able to micromanage your life, like you say, and schedule time to go on dates with your wife, or, like you said, go to the grocery store, or I don't know if anybody that actually schedules time to go to the bathroom, or, things like that. But, you could definitely get to the point of micromanaging your life down to that level as well. But I think that's a great point that you made there about making sure that you take time to manage your schedule properly and to micromanage your life as best you can.
I'll be completely honest. I'm not to the point of scheduling restroom breaks in there yet, but I do schedule 15-minute breaks to grab something to eat, to have a coffee. I realized when I wasn't doing this, I actually went 3 days without stopping to have breakfast or lunch just because I was simply so engaged. So I do put a reminder in there that, you know what, grab something to eat, have a coffee. I sometimes schedule 15 minutes just to do a FaceTime chat with my wife in the middle of the afternoon because I realized after many, many months, I hadn't given her a call in the afternoon. So it's interesting that we do this, but it's because these are important functions of our life. I want to connect with my wife. I never want her to feel neglected, but I'm a very busy individual and my projects are very engaging and important to me. And just as it's very much important to schedule that time with my children, it's a period of time during the day where I have guaranteed 1 hour or even 2 hours where we're going out somewhere together. Maybe it's going for a swim. Maybe it's playing with Legos. I have small children. But you know what? This way, I'm guaranteed that they are having time with me and I'm not neglecting them for a couple of conference calls. That's a very important balance of my life.
Mm-hmm. And I know as a mom of 4 right now, and we have several businesses, the thing that frustrates me or can be a source of frustration is just that, some of the business items become really, really urgent if you don't deal with them or schedule them. And then it's easy to let other things that are really important to you be crowded out by, something because it's urgent all of a sudden or it's an emergency. And so if you don't schedule those things, they can get overrun pretty easily. But the times when I do schedule and take care of them, then it becomes much, much easier to balance and then enjoy everything. Talk to us a little bit about a decision that you have made that has, either turned out really well or maybe better than you expected. Something that you maybe weren't sure of, but it turned out really well.
For sure. This is kind of on a side topic related to my direct business opportunities that I'm focusing on. But we go back to several months ago when I had been invited to Salesforce's Dreamforce in San Francisco to talk about some of the technologies I'm developing, some of these projects that were really revolutionary in the tech industry based upon some of the Salesforce technologies out there. I began leveraging that opportunity across social media for a brand awareness. So I've never been in the past, let's say up until 8 months ago, particularly focused on social media as a means of increasing my brand. And it's a very time-consuming focus to do this. So I initially, really did have to ponder the decision if this was something worth my investment, worth my time, being as busy as I am. And I did have some concerns engaging in this, and getting more involved in LinkedIn and whatnot. But as I progressed into this, and literally we're looking at the last 6 to 8 months, I started connecting. I started getting opportunities. I started helping people. I started enabling different people out there. I've connected with business leaders. I've connected with founders, with CEOs, a lot of people from traditional companies, but as well too from the tech startup perspective. And it's been definitely a two-way road where I've been there to lend some of my knowledge, my experience, sometimes even my failures, to help enable them to come to decisions, to get to the next point. And the amount of opportunities, the actual opportunities to engage in mutually beneficial projects, where there's definitely ways to make money out of this. There's ways to heighten our careers. I've had career opportunities. A lot of different projects have come out of that. And this is something that, I always stress to people that I talk with, is that your personal brand is you in this modern age. We've all heard of corporate brands, Pepsi, Coke, they stand out, but you as a brand is just as important as those big brands for yourself, for who you are. And your brand isn't linked to the job that you have today. It's linked to who you are, your career, even if you change careers. So, the short part of that story ultimately comes down to, it was something that I was very hesitant to engage into. But now that I have embraced really focusing on building my brand, I'm probably setting aside 15 hours a week of engagement. And some of this is physical engagement where I take the conversations offline, where we get out there, we have a coffee, we chat. Sometimes it may be a student who's just gotten out of college, graduating with a degree, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And all we do is we have an honest conversation where I give some feedback, and that's it. But this is something that has really become a tremendous opportunity for me overall, and I strongly recommend your listeners to start engaging in this as well.
Well, I think that's interesting that you mentioned that, because we've been talking about that recently as well, about ways to have an outlet to be able to help other people, in different decisions that they have. And it kind of coincides with this, kind of theme of our podcast too, is, there are people that have decisions that we can help them with that, we don't necessarily need to necessarily charge for our time for that. Because a lot of times people just need a good kick in the pants, or something like that. But to be able to provide and kind of give back, and it's surprising. It will be surprising as you start to give back and start to, provide that advice and that information, how much those people can also help you in other areas.
Exactly. You never know at the end of the day where they're going to end up, where their next career move is going to be. And even from a simple humanitarian viewpoint, to be out there and to give back to people. When you hit a certain point in your career where you're doing very well, you're driving those opportunities for yourself, and that's great, that's okay. But you know what? There's a lot of really good boards out there that support charities, that support children. There's students that could use a simple, honest conversation. And you never really know where that's going to pay a dividend at the end of the road. But that's really rather irrelevant to the purpose of just giving back. I've had so much positivity when I'm sitting down talking to somebody that is either just getting into the workforce, somebody that's graduating. I had a conversation with a woman the other day that had an IT company with 12 employees, and she was looking to scale to the next level, but she really didn't know how to get there. Now, by no means am I a business genius or anything of that level, but I've seen things during my career. I could actually give her, I think, valuable information, or if I'm not the right one to give her that feedback, I do have numerous contacts across different industries where I can simply make a connection. And that's enough for her to find somebody that does have an answer for her. And at the end of the day, that makes me feel very good that I've been able to help somebody on the next step of that journey.
Christian, talk to us a little bit about the strategy that you use when you're facing a tough decision.
Well, you know what? I run across tough decisions every week. And some of these tough decisions can be game changers. They can be career changes, depending on really the pure substantialness of what I'm looking at. So oftentimes, me and my wife, we're very much partners together. My wife is a career woman as well. She's working for a big tech company up here in Canada. So I oftentimes sit down and we have an honest conversation, because primarily everything obviously that I do affects the relationship, affects the family. And it's the same way for her with big changes in her life or her career. So it's never the same. It's a conversation between me and my wife with a level of honesty on there that I want to engage in something, or I have been engaging something and I don't feel it works for me. This is something, maybe it's one of the roles that I have. In the past, it's been my primary role where I said, this was good. This has worked up until this point, but I really feel that I need to go a different direction. And obviously when, you have mortgages, you have cars, you have a family, these are tough questions that, do I want to take a risk? And this is something a lot of entrepreneurs out there ultimately have to make decisions on, right? It's do you push forward with your vision and with your values? Do you leave something that's maybe very secure and financially rewarding to embark on something which is unknown? And really, it's an honest conversation. I sit down, I talk to my wife, I lock myself in a room, I weigh out the pros, I weigh out the cons. But in all honesty, at the end of the day, my vision and my belief in myself is really what drives me to succeed. And if I'm in a role or if I'm focusing on a project that I truly don't believe in, then that's probably not the best place for me.
And having that person as a sounding board and someone to just run ideas by is really, really important. What would you recommend for our listeners as a book or a resource that's helped you either specifically with your decision making or perhaps just in your role as a leader in the corporate environment?
I would love to be able to recommend a book, but that for the most part isn't really where I focus my time more. I've leveraged relationships primarily off of LinkedIn connections that I've met of individuals that I hold a great deal of respect for. There's individuals in my life that I've either worked directly with or could have been CEOs, CTOs in the past where we've had relationships who are now very close colleagues of mine. Oftentimes, these are the people that I go to advice, people that I have seen out there who have achieved certain levels of success, but also sometimes even more importantly, people that have experienced significant failures, because that's really where you learn. So I'm very much engaged into talking to people that have experienced failure, sometimes have hit rock bottom, and then literally dragged themselves back up to a level of success. These are the people that I want to hear from, and these are the people that I want to interact with personally. So typically it's my colleagues and it's people from a similar background to me that I actually have these conversations with. Sit down, have a coffee, and you know what? Have an honest conversation together.
So shifting a little bit here, the gears, what would you say is the most exciting place you have been and traveled to, or item that you have purchased with the money that you've made up to this point in your career?
You know what? The purchases, the financial success of where you get to me, isn't the most relevant. As long as I have a comfortable life for my children and I can give them what they want to have, then you know what? That's really the primary focus of what I do. A location that I've traveled to that literally changed my entire life and was a game changer for my career and even for my relationship, I'll tell you quite simply, was San Francisco with Salesforce and Dreamforce out there. Probably not the most glamorous location in the world. It's not the warmest location by far in the world. You don't want to go swimming on the ocean off the beach in there, that's for sure. But really the reward, the level of game-changing, life-changing opportunities that came out of this end of last year has really influenced everything that I am today. It almost feels like, quite honestly, there was my life before San Francisco and my life after San Francisco. Now, I'd been there several times before, of course, and I've been there many times since then, but that was a pivotal moment in my life, and it was in that city. And no matter where I travel in the world, no matter where I go, no matter where I end up ultimately, that city will always have a special draw and a special connection to me.
Well, what's the next item on your bucket list right now? What's the next thing you want to purchase or the next place that you want to visit or travel to that might be on your bucket list right now?
Purchasing, well, I have to admit, I am a fan of fast cars.
Same here.
So you know what? One of the rewards of really working continuously 7 days a week is that at a certain point you are sort of able to reward yourself. Now, I'll be very honest on this. I just upgraded my wife's vehicle. I have a very nice Mercedes myself, but it's always been a dream of my life to sort of have the AMG C-Class, Sportster type of vehicle. And I'm a big fan of Mercedes. So that will be my next most significant purchase. It's not something that I rush out to do. It's a toy, especially if you've ever been up in Canada and in Montreal in the winter. You can only drive that type of vehicle for a limited amount of time, which is literally half the year. So it really is a toy, and it's something that I'm looking forward to acquiring and going into, but not something that I would sacrifice anything that I have in my life right now for.
Sure. Well, Christian, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to schedule this time for us to be able to share with our listeners about, the different tough decisions that you've made and the lessons that have been learned there. There's a lot of golden nuggets through this interview. And I want to, see if you can share with us how the listeners can reach out to you if they want to get more information from you or start to follow you a little bit more.
For sure. I'm very much engaged on LinkedIn. If you go to my profile under there, my name, obviously, Christian Knudsen, track me down on there. I'm a person where when you send me a connection, where you send me a message and and you really do want to have an honest conversation, or you have some questions that are pertinent to you that you feel that maybe my background or my experience will be of benefit to you, more than happy to connect with you, more than happy to have a conversation. This is really what I'm focusing on right now as a side project. I'm giving back. I love connecting with people. We can set up a call. We can set up a video chat. If you're local, we can sit down and have a coffee. I am always available. And I just love people reaching out to me with questions.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time, Christian, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. It was a pleasure talking with both of you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.